let's just start with the press conference. Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles, either of you can start. I just want some raw reactions on the press conference.
Let me go first because I'm curious to know what Nas thinks about it. But when I was listening to them, I think Nas nailed it on the head in our instant reaction. Eberflus is gone. Sort of that adult in the take, or the adult in the room take that he had, because that's really what that gave off to me. Just the vibes, the energy. And I don't want to come across like Poles ever has felt immature. But Nas, what you had said, and this is probably what you'll expound on, is like there just seems to be a level of maturity that he's a young guy, especially for a GM. He's much younger, and Kevin brings this sort of leadership, aspect to the whole show. And just the whole time, I hearken to this one question. I'll throw it to you then, Nas, and you can go. They asked like specifically about Shane Waldron, like, oh, what exactly went wrong there? And you can like physically see Ryan Poles' face change a little. Like it
was like 10 seconds of silence.
It was like a pregnant pause, and he looked upset, or just the feeling changed. Where like he didn't want to talk about it. Very clear. I think he thought they were done with Shane Waldron, and I didn't get any of that when Kevin Warren spoke. It felt a little more like I've handled big time programs before. I've been around the block. I know what we're doing. Let's HR it a little bit, but sort of, he brought that almost calming. I'm a absolute adult. It felt like a parent almost. Nah, it's like, again, I kept thinking of you while I was watching them speak.
Wow, you're thinking about me? That's nice. Well, I thought Kevin Warren, the command of the room when he was talking, like, it was very clear. This guy has been around this atmosphere with tough media questions, and he knows how to answer them and kind of like ending the conversation on the question. And Poles needs to go through a PR school. Somehow, Kevin Warren's better at it and Thomas Brown's better at it. Poles is fucking awful at it. And like, what's annoying about that is it makes him kind of look like a bitch kind of, and like a little incompetent, but like he's actually not that. I actually do think he's talented and he's learning the job. It just, when it comes to like PR speak, he doesn't know how to like give an answer and kind of like end the conversation and stuff. And then like, I'm also wondering like, who's briefing him like before these pressers? Like, who's like giving him like sample questions? Hey, this is something you might hear today, so like be prepared to answer that. Just something. It felt like that Waldron question completely threw him off. Like he wasn't expecting it. And it's just like, how long are you going to do this job and still get questions you're not expecting, buddy? Like, get it, like, just get that part of it together. Like, and I know that's like kind of actually like the least important part of the job. It's like, if you pick the right players and hire the right coach, none of this matters, because one, the questions get easier, and who cares if you sound like an idiot if we're successful? No one's going to care. Just be a little more prepped, please.
Yeah, that's honestly a little bit disappointing just overall, because obviously with a lot of the hires that they made in the offseason, Ted Cruz, things like that, it seemed like they were more focused on the organizational structure of improving PR.
Jack, we hired Ted Cruz?
Yeah. You didn't know this?
What are we talking about?
Not that Ted Cruz.
Wait, what Ted Cruz? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but what Ted Cruz did we hire?
Ted Cruz. He's a PR guy. They hired him from the Chiefs.
Oh, okay. That's why I don't know. I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
Not that Ted Cruz.
I was gonna say it all fucking makes sense. The red wave is here.
Ted Cruz. It's Crews, like Terry Crews.
Just Ted. I see. I see the confusion.
Not that Ted Cruz. No, not him. But he's been as effective as that Ted Cruz, honestly. It doesn't seem to matter, because to Nas's point, Ryan Poles had just – he looked like he was just so unprepared and just but it was interesting, because I did see a lot of people saying it wasn't a good look for Ryan Poles. While I agree with that sentiment, I did like that he wasn't like, oh, like, it is what it is. Like, we just got to keep pushing and moving forward. Like, he looked upset. Like, he looked like he was embarrassed. He looked like, you were saying, he looked like the little kid in the room. He looks like he knows he fucked up. and a lot of his decisions have led to today and to what happened. If Hard Knocks showed us anything, and I think we even talked about this last week, him having to cut, I think it was Adrian Colbert, the safety, he was obviously very emotional about that. I can only imagine the emotions that Ryan Poles, the frustration he felt having to fire the guy that he went to bat for multiple times. It has been speculated that in the offseason, Kevin Warren was ready to move on from Matt Eberflus, but Ryan Poles was the one that sold him on continuity, wanting to keep things together. And Kevin Warren ultimately fell in with that decision. And I can like it. They kind of talked about it. They're human beings. Ryan Poles, it's a difficult decision to make. For us, it's easy because we don't personally ever interact with Matt Eberflus, who seems like a good guy, whatever. But I would imagine that the emotions for that and just the embarrassment and the frustration of it just not working probably played into a lot of the way that Ryan Poles was coming off. Do you both feel like that's acceptable, or are you kind of just like, get the fuck over it? You made a mistake.
No, I think it's acceptable. That being said, branching off what both of you said, really, I am curious to see what his press conferences look like in the future, particularly when it comes to the head coaching and coordinator hires, because when you listen to him talk about the Shane Waldron hire when he was hired, when you listen to him double down in the offseason, we touched on this in the instant reaction pod where he was like, it was almost like a snatch the mic moment where they asked Eberflus something and like he was like, yeah, it's for continuity's sake, man. Like, he's here. We didn't even talk to Jim Harbaugh. He's the coach at Michigan. Like, he just didn't have a flying fuck in the world. Like, Eberflus was his guy. Now, I'm not saying like, for him to be distant from the next head coach. I'm just curious to see how he's going to take these things, because he really let his nuts hang this offseason. Got Caleb, really doubled down on the coach, and he was not shy about being on these radio appearances, these podcast appearances, and, let the world know, this was my hire, this was my guy. I don't care about them already having the 3 finalists there and everything that came with that. So that's sort of my takeaway with it all. But especially, like Nas said, he was sort of like a little kid. He was like, so yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who speaks more between him and Warren, if they speak together more, what the temperature is going to be for these hires. That's a storyline to definitely keep note of, I think.
Yeah, I mean, something definitely worth remembering is that this was not neither of them were Kevin Warren hires. And I think for a long time, Bears fans were frustrated, us, I imagine, included, about the structure of the Bears, how the GM was sort of the overall football person. Ted Phillips was all the way to the side doing business stuff. He was not involved at all until he decided to make himself involved in things he shouldn't have been involved in. They do the GM, the head coach search at the same time with another agency. Luckily, we did get that question asked and answered by Kevin Warren, and Ryan Poles answered more so. It wasn't a straight up yes or no, but it certainly sounds like they are going to handle things in-house, which I think we all love to hear. No more Bill Polian or Ernie Accorso or a ghost of General Stonewall Wallace or whatever the fuck it was from Anchorman 2. If you get that reference, shout out to you. I love that. The structure, Kevin Warren, it definitely feels like it's more his show. He's kind of running everything, which I do want to get your takes on this, because there's been a lot of discourse I've seen in Bears fandom and NFL fandom just about the role that Kevin Warren is going to be playing. He made it clear that Ryan Poles is the point person. If they do get into some sort of disagreement, Ryan Poles, at least he said, will have the final say on the decision at head coach. Do you both like that structure? Do you feel like Kevin Warren maybe should be a little bit more hands off? Or do you like that it sounds like it's going to be more of a partnership and they're really going to be working together to fill this head coaching position?
I'll go ahead and start. I would say, given what just happened, I'm okay with this structure. I think Ryan Poles is talented. I think he's young. I don't think he was ready for this job. And I think Kevin Warren can sense that. So he's going to be in lockstep with him and set concrete criteria to go from in this interview process, so they can find an answer at head coach. Do I think Ryan Poles, if he remains the GM for the next 10 years, will still need to be doing this and be kind of like have his hand held? No, I don't. Do I think he needs that right now? Yes, I do.
Yeah, that was actually a much better worded of my thoughts. Like, that's exactly how I feel. Like, do I believe Kevin Warren when he says I'm going to default to polls if we have a disagreement? I do. But to Naz's point, I don't think Kevin Warren's going to set him up to fail. Like, the options when they disagree are going to be two coaches that he think are three, whatever, are very good for the job. So it's going to be like, oh, you don't want Vrabel? Okay, we'll go with Ben Johnson. You know what I mean? It's going to be like one of those. It's not going to be like here's this guy from left field, the special teams coach of the Broncos Canada, or something like it. Yeah, like, it's not going to be that. I highly doubt it's going to be that. We're already seeing the reporting from what seems like a very reputable source, an undercover source, and that Sears Tower report just saying like they're ready to, really make a splash in free agency and essentially just not be cheap anymore. So they've already got that down, is what it sounds like. Money is not going to be an issue, so it's going to come down to them figuring out who they think will be the best fit for the locker room and how to build this program with and alongside Warren and Poles.
Yeah, they mentioned we've heard that report a couple times now about money not being an issue. I'll need to see it to believe it. This organization has not earned the benefit of the doubt whatsoever from me. I imagine from Bears fans just in general. One thing I did want to touch on as well in regards to this press conference before maybe we move on to the Thomas Brown stuff. Obviously, the debacle of Matt Eberflus being allowed to do that 9 a.m. interview, we touched on it a little bit on the emergency reaction podcast when it actually happened, but we've since got more details. Kevin Warren basically said they had still not even come to the decision on Friday morning after the game. They let him do it because it was business as usual. They were still debating exactly what they wanted to do. I'm just going to give my take, and then I'll let both of you give yours as well. It's very frustrating because there were a lot of Bears podcasts that were talking, Bears podcasts, radio shows, after game shows, things like that, talking about these decisions late into the night on Thursday. It was a terrible game. You hear all of the stuff coming out afterwards. It felt like something big was going to happen, and it sounds like the Bears contingent just went home. Like they just went and had Thanksgiving, which that part's a little bit frustrating in and of itself. But then also, you get up early in the morning, you hear Jalen Johnson having this outburst. The locker room forced Matt Eberflus. They basically ran him out of the building because they were just yelling at him, pissed off, et cetera, et cetera. You get back to Chicago, and you don't know if you want to fire him or not. I assume what happened was because Kevin Warren mentioned wanting to get a good night's sleep, or at least trying to at least think about it, let emotions cool a little bit. What I'm assuming happened is that they woke up in the morning. Ryan Poles went to Kevin Warren, said, "All right, I'm ready to do this. We can't continue like this." They went to George McCaskey. They met some sort of resistance, and they had to sell him on that. And that's what made those conversations take a little bit longer. And then I'm assuming also they were coming up with a plan of, okay, we fire him. What do we want to do? And that's when Thomas Brown was promoted. That's when they promoted Beatty to offensive coordinator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is what I'm guessing happened. I don't think it was a case where it was they just genuinely were just, do we keep him? Do we not keep him for hours on end after that? That would, to me, would be crazy. But I guess you could both give your thoughts if you agree or disagree, or have other thoughts on maybe what took so long.
You want to go first, Naz?
I'm going to be honest. I think this is a non-story.
Even though we've heard reports that the people around the league have looked at this as a negative.
The only thing that bugs me about this that I actually perceive to be the negative is the fact that it takes this many holes to jump through to get rid of a person that is unqualified to be the coach. That is what I think hurts the reputation of the Bears as an organization. Not really the timing of it and making Eberflus do the presser at 9 and take questions at 9 on Friday. I don't think that was the issue. I actually thought that was a very savvy answer from Warren, saying, well, we didn't want anything to get leaked. We wanted to give him an opportunity to, say goodbye to people in the building and leave with dignity and not find out over like the internet or Twitter. Like, I actually thought that was a pretty good crafted answer. Again, Ryan Poles, take notes. This is how you answer questions. And it just bugged me because it's like, I know what the resistance was. We all know what the resistance was. And this would have gotten taken care of much earlier if Poles had full reign and final say on how this organization was going to operate. But this had to be a conversation with the owner, who has, I don't know, it's been a couple of years about them stepping aside and wanting this organization to run the right way. And it still felt like, no, well, hold on a second. You want to do what? And yeah, it just pissed me off in that regard. Frank?
I agree. I think it is a bit of a story about the Zoom call because of what Jack said. To us, I think, people can overblow it, but it's a story because when you're interviewing, that's going to be a thing. That can be looked at for a coach as embarrassing. If I think about like the way general interview structures are. You ask me the questions if you're trying to hire me. You give me 15 minutes at the end or whatever to ask. I'm going to say, hey, what the fuck happened with that Zoom thing, man? Like, if you're going to fire me, just let me go, But that being said, to Naz's overall point, I think we're in lockstep here. Me being Kevin Warren, obviously. That's easy to explain away. It was Thanksgiving, is a shorter week. Like, that's one you can massage a little bit and say, it's not that big of a deal. Where I do stand, though, is... And I feel like we've all sort of said this in different ways, but it pisses me off that what did you mean you needed a good night's sleep? You all, and George included, this goes to George too, because I think what we're all saying as well is I think Ryan and Kevin were ready. They wanted him gone, and it was George who was the resistance. But, I mean, come on, dude. We after that game, after Jalen Johnson hollering at this man and making him leave the room, what are we doing, bro? There's no conversation even to be had. The only conversation is, hey, we're either, officially making the call tonight, or if you want to go to sleep first, get some food in your belly, cool. We're doing the shit first thing in the morning. Cancel the fucking Zoom call. That's it. Why is there any sort of like that? I'm annoyed by that. That's the part that's stupid to me.
Yeah, I get wanting to present business as usual if you're not, whatever. They say they didn't know, but obviously I think it was pretty clear it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. Yeah, cancel. You gotta cancel the Zoom interview. Just
totally,
especially because there was confusion about it, even if it even was gonna happen, if it even was gonna take place. We had reporters saying, it's supposed to start in 4 minutes. We don't even have the link for it. Like, that's the kind of stuff behind the scene that, again, ultimately, I don't think, hopefully, 3 to 5 years from now, we'll be even talking about this or remembering that specific Zoom call thing. We'll just be talking about the Eberflus era in general, and hopefully laughing about it because we're in a much better place. But yeah, I just think it's bad structure for the Bears. Little embarrassing, but again, I think to both of your points, ultimately, it's not something I think is going to be detrimental to hiring the best possible person, especially if the money part is true. And then, the types of coaches, Kevin Warren called it the most coveted opening in the NFL, which I know people will disagree because that's just the age we live in. But it's really not ultimately close right now. With the current openings, things can happen, things can change, obviously, throughout the rest of the season and in the offseason as well. But right now, I would say undoubtedly this is the most attractive job on the market, right? You both agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I think the only even potential one would be Cleveland if they fire Stefanski. I'm sorry.
I was thinking Cincinnati. Cincinnati.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cincy is who I meant to say. If they fire Zach Taylor, I don't know. I got the game on as we're playing in the background. That's why. Yes. No. If Cincy, if Zach Taylor gets fired, Cincy, I mean, Burrow and those weapons that's probably a little bit higher on the list.
I think there's a little bit of room for debate because there are certain coaches in the market that want a little bit more control and of how they're going to put in their culture when they get to a team. And the Bears operate in a pretty old school way. So that might be less attractive to a coach that wants to do things their way. So, I mean, we can look at the openings at the end of the season and then really like rank them. But as much as obviously I'm a homer, I think it's like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, obviously Caleb's here. There's a lot of young talent on this team. And we've seen, as you guys have pointed out from that Friday morning situation, like there is dysfunction here. And that makes it unattractive in that way, that we're not operating like a first-class organization.
Yeah. Really quick, I am curious, who do you all think, what opening or potential opening, like, do you think would give someone more control? Obviously than what the Bears would, or like maybe even total control.
Raiders, you think? By far.
I think the Jags for sure will. I think
Jags is a good one.
Getting fired too.
We think Jets. You think the Jets are ready to have like if Vrabel goes there, he's probably having total control, huh?
They're hiring social media people to find their next head coach. Like let's be serious.
Dude, Vrabel's not going. Woody's not even going to be in the country. Nobody's going to want that job.
Yeah,
I certainly.
They're going to get Cohen, aren't they?
They're gonna get some dude, and he's gonna get a nice deal, and he is gonna have a nice life after the 2 years that he's coaching the Jets, and he'll be the OC somewhere else in 3 years, whatever.
Well, maybe